if you are someone who cannot be in silence with themselves, with your own thoughts, if you can't sit somewhere and just have your thoughts pop up and just ponder and just let your thoughts come, if you're not at peace with that, if you're not at peace with yourself, you have to work. You have some work to do. You have some examination thing to do of yourself. And that might be really hard to hear, and might be really difficult to think about that even, but all it will do is make your life better and make you as a person better. It will improve all aspects of your life, so it's completely worthwhile to do it, even though it might be scary or daunting. So how do you go about that? How would you start? Well, first of all, you have to examine what are your problems. Why are you not happy with yourself? What are these thoughts that are coming up in your mind when you sit in silence? Or why do you seek distractions from your mind because you don't want to sit in silence? What is the problem? So first of all, what you have to do is you have to sit in silence. You have to think about those things, perhaps write them down. And you have to acknowledge what those problems are. Because if you don't acknowledge the problems, you can't solve them. You can't work on them. And maybe you, in your mind, you're thinking right now, those problems are not solvable. I don't want to think about them. They're impossible to solve. If there's something external, okay, but there is still something you can do about that. Let's say you have a problem which you have no control over at all, and you can't change anything about it. And that's why you don't want to think about it, because you can't change anything about it. That's fair enough, but it's still not something it's still something that you might not have accepted or be at peace with yet. And in order to do that, so let's first talk about these things that are out of your control. Yes, I understand you don't want to think about them if you can't control them, but what's more important, you don't want to worry about them at all if you can't control them. And if you're just trying to shove those thoughts away because you can't control them, but because you know that it will spark fear or worry inside of you or anxiety, that's not the right way to go about it. First, you need to build a foundation that things you don't have control over don't worry you at all anyways. Or maybe in the first few seconds that you hear about the problem or you realize what the problem is, then of course we're not superhumans. We can't just block that out immediately or not worry about it immediately, but it's a skill you can develop the skill to not worry about things that are outside your control. And in order to do that, you have to examine it, you have to learn and read, and you have to, it's a journey in order to learn that skill. But you can't just push all those things away and not worry about them because you're not thinking about them, even though if you would think about those things, or if those thoughts would pop up about that certain problem, you would still feel anxiety and dread and stress and whatever. So you can't just try to avoid them, because you can do that of course, but that is not a very good long-term solution. So that's my first tip. Try to learn to not worry about things out of your control, and that's the skill. You have to learn that skill. Now this is obviously Stoicism. It's a reason why it's been so popular the past couple of years, because this is basically the main thing about Stoicism, to not worry about things that are outside of your control. So if you want to learn about those things, go study some of that. Go study some Stoicism. Now, second, the things that are in your control, and which give you stress, which give you anxiety, dread. This is different, but it's also most of the solutions are pretty simple, but they're difficult and they take time to learn or maintain or whatever. When it comes to problems that are inside of your control, but you don't want to sit still in silence because those things give you dread and anxiety, you must simply do them. You must simply have a progressive realization of the solving of those problems. So I don't know what your problem might be, but if you can do something about it, then the stress that you have is because you're not doing that or because you don't want to do it, which makes sense, but the simple solution is to start doing it, or to start the fixing of the problem, even though the starting might just be thinking about how to solve the problem or writing it out. It doesn't have to be the immediate fix of the problem, you know. Again, we aren't superhumans who can just fix things like that, but the flick of a wrist, you know. It's just things take time, and that's okay, and things are difficult, that's okay. But if we do nothing about it, about the problem, then it's just gonna keep building up anxiety and dread and stress inside ourselves. So we have to see what the problem is, acknowledge it, think of how there could be a solution. Again, if there isn't a solution, if you can do nothing about it, try to build up the peace in your mind that you can't control it, and so that you can be at peace with it. That's again the first step which we were talking about. And if you can control it, if there is control you can exercise in order to fix the problem, even though it might take a long time or like take a lot of effort, and start doing it. Start thinking about how you can solve this problem. Because as soon as you start working on it, even though you might still feel anxiety about it, the more you start working on it, then you know that you are doing the best you can about it, and that will relieve stress because you know you're doing the right thing, and that actually will build a lot of other positive things within you. Not only will bring self-assuredness, you will just simply feel better because you're taking up a responsibility, you're taking ownership of the problem, and this will be healthy for you mentally very much. So these are basically the two things I would try to say. You should examine those problems even though they might bring you a lot of anxiety and dread right now. If you're thinking about them, it will only help you as a human being to be more at peace with yourself, to be more fulfilled. And so it's very worthwhile to try and to acknowledge those problems, write them down even if you want to, or just acknowledge them in your mind and start working on the problems that are inside of your control. Even if you do it very slowly, maybe the problem is trauma or something that will take years to solve. But at least you're working towards it, and that will bring you fulfillment. You'll know, okay, at least I'm working on it, you know. That brings peace, that brings happiness, it brings self-assuredness, you know. It's good for you, confidence. The things that are outside of your control, again, try to accept those things. That takes time to learn that skill, to learn to be able to accept the things that are outside of your control. Those things I would say, it will bring you much peace if you can start to integrate these things to your life and to learn these skills and to start solving these problems. So I hope this helps, and yeah, see ya. Have a good day and good luck.